Hi everyone, it's Debbie here. Welcome to week 8 of our remote learning. So last week we looked at writing a cover letter. I hope you all found that very useful. It's going to be an invaluable skill for you for the future. And to wrap that up completely with applying for jobs, this week we're going to look at CV writing and application forms. Next week we will conclude with interview techniques. So really strong life skills, which I hope you'll find useful. Our learning objectives for today are as follows. We are going to recap on writing an effective cover letter. So we're going to look at the example that we had from last week and just look at the format and content that you should have learnt from that. We're then going to discuss different ways that employees look for people when applying for a job. And following that, we will be examining the content and format of a good CV. And finally, the assignment for today is to write your own CV. So just to recap on Amy's letter from last week, as you can see, she had a really good format for her letter. She remembered to put her address in the top right, followed by the date, and then she put the address of the company that she was writing to on the left, followed by the salutation, that is the Dear Sir, Madam, and together with that she put yours faithfully, and she signed it off well. She spaced it out with paragraphs, and then we move on to the content. So she had previously been a work experience employee there, so you would have thought she would have known the person she was writing to. That's my only criticism. So she should have really addressed that personally and then put yours sincerely. But anyway, this was a job that she saw on Indeed, and she put the job reference, which is what was required. She attached her CV, and she also gave all the necessary information that was required. But she didn't go into anything irrelevant, did she? She just was straight to the point. She gave her work experience. She said how she felt that benefited her. So it was given a really positive feel to the letter. And she talked about her hard skills, her soft skills, and her transferable skills. So if you remember, hard skills, have a think what they are for a minute. So hard skills are those that are physical traits that will enable you to do the job. So she's had some work experience as an apprentice motor mechanic. So that's her hard skills. She has that knowledge of that employment. Her soft skills are her personal traits. So here she's saying that she's hardworking and reliable. And then her transferable skills, they're the ones in the last paragraph. So she's been a team player, a team member of both Sea Cadets and St John's Ambulance. So that's demonstrating an example there of her being that team player. So rather than just saying, I'm a great team player, she's given an example, which is excellent. And finally, she's given some really fantastic additional information that she's got a first aid certificate. So anything additional like that will really make you stand out from everyone else. So a really good letter there from Amy. Okay, just a final recap then on writing a cover letter. So we've looked at the format, we've looked at the content. As I said, make sure you do include all your skills, as in hard, soft and transferable, but it does have to be to the point to make an impact. You want to appear a little bit different, but you also need to follow that format because they're going to have to read so many of these letters that they don't want to read a very long essay about you. So keep it to the point. Something that I haven't mentioned before is using good quality plain white paper. Also cream is very acceptable as well. So no flourishes, sparkles, flowers. You may think, oh, that'll make it stand out, but not in this particular area. So even, yeah, and also pink, purple, don't go there. Just keep it on good quality plain or cream white paper. Let's move on then to finding a job. Well, how do you do this? A lot of companies, they will just advertise their vacancies on their website. So go to the vacancies section on their website. There they will have all the positions that they have currently advertised, and you will then download an application form, which you then have to complete and return, or they may ask you to write to a particular person with your curriculum vitae, your CV, and your covering letter. And be very careful to make sure you know who you are sending that letter to. So it could have a name of a person, or it could have the position of a person. So it could be the HR manager, a departmental manager. It could even be a managing director if it's a small enough company. So as I said, do make sure you know who that's got to go back to. And also they may advertise in shop windows if it's a retail position that you're looking at, or in your local community centre if it's a local position. Additionally, they may use recruitment agencies. We looked at a recruitment agency last week, didn't we, in one of the covering letter applications. And what the recruitment agency does is they actually vet you. So they look at all your details before they actually approach that company to see if you will be suitable then for that company. And then if you're not successful for a particular position, they can keep your details on file and they can look for other positions for you. So it is good to register for different companies, as in agencies. However, do bear in mind that any employer that goes to an agency do have to pay a fee for them. So they're not always very keen to do that. So like I said, look directly at their websites in the first instance. So I'm not going to lie to you. Filling in application forms is a complete nightmare. I had to do many of them and it doesn't get any easier, I'm afraid, but it is a necessity. It's not a place where you need to stand out from the crowd. It's something that you have to conform to. You have to do exactly what it asks you to do. So it's very important that you know how to complete these accurately. There can be different formats to do this. Quite often it's an application form that you download from a website, and do remember to download your own version and enable editing so that you then work on your own version and return it. I have known it to happen that an application form has been filled out by just opening it on a website. It's been completed and then the person's thought, okay, I can now just send this, and this isn't the case. It just hasn't saved. So you need to make sure you download that first. Unfortunately, there are still companies as well that actually want you to print off a hard copy of their application form because they want to see your handwriting. They want to see that you know how to fill in these in correctly and that you can do that neatly. Again, a bit of a nightmare, but unfortunately that's what they want. Now, whether you're filling in application forms by handwriting them or by doing it on a computer, please make sure that you use capital letters because then that will make your wording stand out well. And use a standard black font, so make sure it's black ink. If on a computer, something like Arial Times New Roman would be a good font to use. Okay, work your way down the form. If there are check boxes, make sure you put a cross in them or a tick. And if there's anything that isn't applicable for you, so for example, it may say list all university applications, qualifications. Well, obviously at this stage you don't have those. So just write NA, capital N/A. So that's not applicable. So just make sure you fill in every one of these boxes because if there's any missing information, you'll either get it sent back to you or they'll disregard your application. When it comes to the bit where you have to write in your educational qualifications and your employment history, make sure you write that chronologically. So, i.e., that means in sequence date order. You begin with the most recent first. That's really important. So the last qualification that you obtained. So, for example, if that was something at college, then you would write in the qualification there, followed by your school qualifications. Additionally, if you've had more than one position, as in employment, then you put your current one first or your most recent, and then work your way back. Okay. Finally, if it asks for referees, so for references, then do make sure you ask the person first before you include their name, because they won't want something coming out of the blue. It could end up in their junk box and they just won't know what's happening. And also, you can't include relatives as referees. So they can be in a position, so someone like your tutor would be a really good person to ask, or a local person in your community, such as if you go to church, then your local priest would be a good person. Your doctor would be a good person. So someone who's got a position of authority really in your life. So that would, and who knows you, they should have known you for at least 1 or 2 years as well. So they would be really good people to ask to be referees. And finally, be truthful. You will get caught out if you're not truthful. When it comes to interview, they will be having a look at your application form, your covering letter, your CV. It'll all be in front of them, and they will make sure that they refer to all of those things. Not all application forms are the same though, so you do have to make sure that you use very close reading for these forms. So be very careful at answering all the questions accurately and look at what they require. So for example, some may ask for your skills and qualities for that position. Make sure they're relevant. We're just going to have a look at a particular application form now. This is 4 pages long. So like I say, it's not an easy task. You do have to spend some time on these. So very quickly, we'll just look at this one. This one was for the Chiltern Open Air Museum. Very nice museum, by the way. If you ever over Denham Way, if you know where Denham is, then it's a really interesting place to visit with lots of old buildings from the past that you can go and look around. Anyway, so let's quickly look through this application form. So we've got the name of the vacancy, so make sure you know the exact job title that you're applying for. Date of application, that's the day that you fill it in. And how did you hear about the position? So did you see it on their website? Did someone tell you about it? Was it in the newspaper? Your personal details, that's all straightforward. And then we get to employment history. And so name and address of current employer. Obviously, if you haven't had a job before, then this is where you put NA, not applicable. But if you have, put the name and address of your employer, the dates that you've been employed. If you're still employed there, you put the date you started to present. So you write present. Job title, brief description. Keep it brief, but do include the important elements of that job, which would also be applicable to this job. So that would be a key thing to do. Salary, that could be rate per hour or annual salary. And your notice period is, if you still work in there, how long do you have to tell them before you leave? So it could be 1 week or 1 month, depending on the position. So page 2, so it carries on, previous employment. So there's 3 more spaces for previous employment. So again, if you've already put not applicable before, then do that again. Or if you've just had the one job, then just put not applicable at the top here, and they can see that you haven't had any more positions. Of course, if you get to my age, then you've had quite a few positions probably, and you do have to continue on a separate sheet of paper and send that in along with the application form. Page 3, onto education and training. So as I said before, make sure you do it in chronological order, starting with the present. So if there's any qualifications at all or training, it says here, that you have acquired recently, you put those first. For example, if you have got a first aid certificate, fantastic. By the way, if you want to go and get one, St John's Ambulance is an excellent place, or the British Red Cross, also an excellent place to get one. You do have to pay for them, but then they really will make you stand out from other applicants. So say, for example, you've got this first aid certificate, then you would put that as the first one there that you've, if that was the last thing that you got. So you'd put the place there. So was it at a school, college or university, or it could be at a training establishment like the St John's Ambulance. So you'd write that there. The date of the course, and then finally the qualification that was gained. So here it would say, for example, emergency first aid certificate. Grade would just probably be a pass for something like that. Obviously, if it was if you were writing your GCSEs in there, then you would have to write your grade there. So start with the most recent and work your way back. And then skills and experience. Please detail below the relevant skills and experience you can bring to this position and how you meet the person's specification. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, you will have a person's specification with a job as well. So as I said, when you look at a job, you have to look at all the relevant paperwork that goes with it. So there could be what they call a JD, a job description. So that would be outlining the actual job. But then there could also be something called a person specification. And on that would be the qualities of that person that they are looking for. So it'll be your hard skills and soft skills and transferable skills. It'll be what they are looking for. So you have to tick the boxes basically here. What you need to do is you have to look at the key words that they are looking for and include them here in your summary of yourself. This is about a personal statement almost about yourself. Very similar if you go on to university, you have to write a personal statement about yourself. And it's about including those key words that they're looking for to make you relevant for this job or this course that you want to do. So keep it brief. Again, make sure you format it correctly, please. So you can use paragraphs here. You could carry on with this box here, even though it's quite a small box. You can see on the form here, the more you type, the more you can add. But 1 page would be enough. Keep it relevant, okay? And then finally here we move on to, it talks about CRB, which is now DBS, the Disclosure Barring Service. So it needs to know about any previous convictions. Again, if by any chance you do happen to have anything in the past, you do have to declare it. That's the most important thing, just declaring anything at all, because you will be found out. So make sure you tick all the relevant boxes here. So final page, page 4. At the top there, are you willing to undertake a DBS disclosure application? So as I said, this is the Disclosure Barring Service, and this is something that a lot of employers ask for nowadays. What they do is they run checks on you, police checks, and like I say, if there are any previous misdemeanors that have happened, don't worry about it. The important thing is that you have declared it, and obviously you will want to tick the yes box here. If you tick no, then they're likely to disregard your application. And references, as we've talked about references, here they just need basic details for 2 referees. They ask whether they can contact them at this stage. So you do have a choice. You can say no if you'd rather people weren't contacted before interview stage, or if you're happy for them to be contacted before interview stage, so at the application stage, just write yes there. Like I say, make sure they know, your referees know that they will be contacted. Relationship to you, like I say, it could be priest, doctor, tutor, family friend, it could even be, but not a relative. And finally, remember to sign it. If you're doing it on a computer, you can do electronic signature. So that's just in maybe an italic font with your name, and date it. And at the end, it just says to you that if you haven't heard within 4 weeks, you won't have been successful. They can say that. Some people do contact you to say whether you're successful or not, but in this case, they're not going to. Okay, so that's application forms covered. We're going to leave that there. So if you do have any more questions at all, I'm more than happy to answer them. Just send me a message, and or if you have an application form that you need to complete for anywhere, I'm very happy to have a look at it. As I said, they can be a bit of a minefield. They can vary, so don't be alarmed by them. Right, moving on to a CV. What is a CV? Well, I went on to Collins English Dictionary online, and I got this definition for you. So a curriculum vitae, and here you've got the pronunciation underneath here, curriculum vitae. In the US they say VT, I think, yeah. It's a singular noun, and it's also shortened to CV, so more commonly known as the CV. In America, they call it a resume. Yeah. So curriculum vitae, what does that mean? It's from the Latin and can be loosely translated as course of life. So it's looking at the course of your life so far. So a really important document for an employer to see. What do we include on our CV? Well, it can be very different. I recommend that you follow the format I'm going to be explaining to you now. People do add different things, and you can find these online. If you just Google images CV, you can see many different formats. But the one we're going to look at today is as follows. So it should have personal details, qualifications and training, work experience, interests, and details of references, or you could just say referees can be obtained. So that's the basis of what we'll be looking at today. Okay, let's look at a format of a CV then. So not very clear, this one. The original version of it will be attached to your assignment though, so you can actually see a clearer version of this. So what we're looking at for the actual CV is just the middle part here. The two margins on each side is just giving you tips on what to do. So if we start in the top right, so it says here all the contact details including phone numbers are provided so the employer can get in touch easily. So what do you do? At the top there, it's got the name of the person. This person's called GD Sport. That's their name. And they live at 222 Basketball Court, My City, My County, NY11 1BB. Their telephone number and their mobile and their email. So that's all the details that an employer will need about you. So do include those. So that's at the top. Okay, moving on down on the right hand side again, it says make sure the headings are clear and easy to read. Yeah, very important. So here it's detailing education first, followed by employment, work experience, interests, achievements, and references at the end. So if you notice, these are all in a bold font. So that is really important. So either a bold font or underline them, just to make those headings really clear. Let's move over to the left-hand margin. It's talking about education. So education can be listed as the first or second heading on the CV. based on how important educations are and qualifications are to the job. Okay, so in your circumstances, you will have some qualifications. You probably won't have that much employment history, so I would put education. Something that's missing here, which I really do want you to put, and which I'm going to ask you to put for your own CV application in the assignment, is a profile. I'd like a short profile. So that's what I would like after the contact details. I will show you an example of this later on. So just a heading of profile, and that's just going to give a short summary about yourself, about your strong qualities and anything that you may have achieved so far. So a very short summary of yourself. And I think that's really important at the top of a CV under your personal details. Okay, so after that, then I'd put your education, and then, as it says here, your employment work experience, and then your interest achievements, and then I would say references available on request, like it does here. Let's just cover the rest of the things in these margins. So looking at second down on the left, it says the spacing is neat and tidy. So yep, again, make sure that everything is very clear to read. So you can see here with the employment and work experience, there's a clear gap between each position. So it's nice and easy to read. They've got the exact dates here that they've worked. Here they've put their employment is to date. So you can either put to date or present or current. So just to show that you're still in that position. Moving over to the right-hand margin again, it says try to avoid having gaps in the employment history if possible. If there are gaps due to a return to education or a break for travel, list these events as part of the CV and be prepared to discuss them at an interview. So yeah, that's really important, especially if you're going for a position where, for example, in a college or a school, they really do need to see those employment gaps. And this is for your DBS that we've already discussed. So they need to see where you've been during that time. And quite often, they can be really valuable experiences that you've had here as well. So, for example, you could have been doing some volunteering work, or you could have been on a gap year. So these are important events in your life that you should also be included, but only use them if they're relevant. Moving over to the left again, it says the information on the CV is well organised and written in chronological order, with the most recent experiences listed first and then going back in time. So we've discussed this now a couple of times. So always make sure that your most recent is first on there, whether that is education or employment or work experience. Okay, moving over to the right again, this is a chance to show personal qualities that can be of interest to an employer. Include interests that an employer may also value. Okay, so this is your transferable skills that we're looking at here. So this one's talking about competitive basketball, bowling, and keeping fit. So these things all show that you are working as a team. So these are all team things, but also, and that you're active as well. So you're not just sitting around doing nothing, you're an active person. And it says this person is working towards the Duke of Edinburgh Bronze Award. So again, it shows extra motivation and dedication. So all really relevant things for an employer to see. Finally, let's go back over a couple of things, back over to the left. The references do not need to be listed, but the employee can see that they can be provided if necessary. To be honest, that's what I would do here. Rather than actual putting the names of the people on the CV, I would say references available on request. And lastly, bottom right, the CV was printed out on good quality white paper. Yeah, so like I say, white or cream, really good background for a CV. So I really like this example of a CV here, slightly different to the one we've just seen. But this might be something that you would have in the future. I'd say the first version is more applicable for you at the moment, because this one I think is for someone who's a little bit more established. He's an archaeology undergraduate. He's got a few more skills under his belt. He's worked in a few more places. But what I wanted to show you here was the profile at the top. I really like the fact that there's a short profile at the top. I always have that on my CV. So he's got his contact details first. Do note he's got his name standing out there, and he's put Curriculum Vitae underneath. I'd actually put Curriculum Vitae along the top to make that clear. And I also prefer to centre it personally. But what I really wanted to show you here was the profile part. So he's saying, I'm a hardworking archaeology undergraduate who has gained work experience in the heritage sector through work placements abroad, as well as through volunteering with English Heritage. Has participated in several excavations and has 6 years worth of experience of customer service and retail. Has strong IT and administration skills, works well with a team, and individually is passionate about heritage and the past. So it's almost like he's reporting on himself, isn't it? He's not saying, I am this and I am that. He's he's just stating facts about himself, and they're all very relevant to the position that he's applying for. He's obviously applying for some sort of archaeological employment, and he's made that relevant by highlighting all the areas that would be interesting to them. So English Heritage, for example, and he has strong people skills, so he's had customer service and retail positions. So that's why I wanted to show you this one. Okay, so quick recap on CV writing. Make it stand out, but don't make it stand out by putting it on pink sparkly paper. Make it stand out by using good bold headings in a good format. Make it relevant to the position that you are applying for. So a generic CV, it says here they don't work, but they can if you're going to apply on spec. Now, what is a generic CV, first of all? Well, it's a CV that can be submitted for any position. It's just really detailing your life story as a person. It's not tailor-making it for a particular vacancy. That's a generic CV. They can be very useful if you're going to apply on spec. So that means you just want to hand in your CV or send in your CV to a particular company that you'd love to work for. They will then put it on file, hopefully, and contact you then if a relevant position becomes available. So you would send in that CV with a generic covering letter, again detailing yourself and the type of position that you're looking for. However, if you're going to tailor make your CV, if there's a particular position you're going to go for, 75% of it will stay the same, such as personal details, education, work experience. What you will change though is you'll just make your profile a little bit more relevant to that position. So really highlight those key skills that they're looking for, same as on your covering letter. And also perhaps your list of skills or experience, make it more relevant to that particular vacancy. What else do you need to do? Well, you need to give examples. So as I mentioned before, both in your covering letter and on your CV, don't just say your skills are that you're great at communicating and you're a really good team player. You need to back those up with relevant examples. So for example, when I worked in JD Sports, I had constant communication with customers and help them with their purchases, which demonstrates that I understand what a customer needs. I also worked with other people and was a good team player by helping them out if they needed it. So giving those examples, that's more really, I would say, for your covering letter. On your CV, you could just say team player by working with others in JD Sports, something like that. If it's for a university, you want to talk about why you really particularly want to do that course, why it's right for you. And then moving on to the actual interview stage, if you mention anything at all on your CV, like I say, make sure it's truthful, because you will be quizzed on it. They will want to know a lot about it. You know, if you're going for a position in a big bookstore and you particularly love a certain genre of books and you give examples of that genre, then they're going to ask you about it. So it's going to look very impressive in your covering letter and your CV, but it has to be truthful. Yeah, make sure you've read that book. And finally, it goes without saying, spell check, spell check, spell check, proofread, spell check again. You know how much I love it, and it is so, so important. And make sure it's a UK spell checker. So along the bottom, if it says US spell checker, change it. It's got to be UK spell check. And make sure your grammar's good, please. Most of the information I've presented today is from BBC Bitesize. It's a great, great website, so I can't recommend highly enough to go on there, look at the videos, do the exercises. It's an excellent source for you to improve your English. So this link here is to the video on writing a cover letter and a CV. So do look at that just to recap on what we've learnt today. Finally, we come to the assignment 8 for CV writing. So just consists of one task this week, you'll be pleased to know, but it's a very important task. It's actually writing your CV. And this is going to be something that you can use for the future. So do make sure you put all your effort into it. And I want you to write a generic CV, because you're not applying for a particular position, but this is just really a template for yourself that you can then use, and you can adapt for different positions that you go for in the future. So it should be a truthful account of your current qualifications, qualities and employment, and include all the headings that are provided on the actual assignment. So I do give you a list of headings to use. As I said, it's really important that this is a truthful account. I know in the last assignment in writing a cover letter, we pretended that we had those qualifications and skills so that we could apply for those particular positions. But this is a truthful account of yourself, because this is something I would really like you to have for you to use in the future. Okay, so that's writing a generic CV. Use the document that's there. So use the original document. I've put a heading, Curriculum Vitae, and I want you to actually write your details on that page. So to do that, remember, you go into Assignments in Teams, and you click on the document and you see the ellipsis to the right. You click on that and it says Open in Word Online. And this will then save your own personal copy of the original document. You work on that, and when you've finished, close it and click Hand In. Okay, if you missed the deadline, I'd rather you didn't, but if you did, please don't worry. This is a really important document, I think, for you, and I really would like each of you to complete it. So if you need to take a little bit more time, that's absolutely fine. But what you'll have to do is attach it to chat to send it to me. But for me to see it clearly and to give you a mark for it, I would like you to submit it before the deadline. That's it for today. Thank you very much for listening again, and I really look forward to reading your CVs. Bye-bye.